Go big or go home. Learn how these organizations launched brand campaigns that span their entire national audience with fluidity and continuity without sacrificing their core message. We've got three great panelists today. We have Rachel Piacenza, the Senior Director of Marketing at the Recreational Boating and Fishing Foundation. She has 15 years experience driving marketing initiatives among consumers and state fish and wildlife stakeholders. Overseeing national consumer and state marketing brand strategies through RBFF's Take Me Fishing campaign, she has spent her entire career inspiring others to enjoy the benefits of fishing and boating while conserving our aquatic and natural resources. Formerly at the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources, Rachel led statewide aquatic recruitment, retention, and reactivation efforts and youth education programs. She holds a BBA in marketing and a general business from the University of Wisconsin-Whitewater, a mini MBA from Rutgers, and an executive leadership certification from Cornell. An avid angler and youth sports coach, Rachel balances professional prowess with active engagement. And Jose Maldonado, introduction to the business world was via his father's neighborhood bodega, where his uncompromising work ethic and respect for people left a lifelong impression. Jose is fortunate to bring the same passion and integrity to the bike industry. With over 25 years of bicycle industry experience, he comes equipped with a record of success in building consumer relationships and creating powerful brand moments. Jose brings an extensive storytelling background and the ability to meet audiences where they are. He is a dynamic, innovative, analytical, creative leader who is passionate about our industry and fanatical about connecting people to their most monumental moments on and off the bike. Jose revels in teamwork and understands its profound impact on an organization. And Katie McCaleb, backcountry hunters and anglers, she joined the BHA team following a 17-year stint with the Theodore Roosevelt Conservation Partnership, TRCP for those not in the know, where she led their outdoor media outreach and other communication works. She also helped realize founder Jim Range's vision for the TRCP as an influencer of sportsman-driven conservation policy and a center point in the outdoors and hunting and angling constituencies. She serves as counsel to the board of directors of the Outdoor Writers Association of America and volunteers for other grassroots sportsman and conservation efforts. In her spare time, she enjoys upland hunting with friends, big game hunting with her husband, and getting her two kids out and about on Montana's hills, peaks, and waterways. Please help me welcome our panelists. And Jose, it's all you.
It's all me, okay. Hey, everybody.
A little mic drop for you.
Haven't even started and I dropped the mic. All right. My name is Jose Maldonado. I live in Utah. It's been quite a journey. I grew up on the East Coast and had a dream to be out west, and I keep getting further west, which I love. I am talking about battery recycling. I know there's a lot of, most of you probably experienced an e-bike yesterday during our scavenger hunt. But what I'm talking about is an industry campaign to help bring awareness to battery recycling. And there's reasons for that. And what I'm talking about is not necessarily the campaign itself or the messaging. What I'm talking about is what does it take to actually launch a campaign, messaging, comms, et cetera, behind the scenes for us to do this. And one of the big claims that we have in our battery recycling program, e-bike battery recycling made simple. So in order to do that, we've got to really align the industry and a bunch of stakeholders. So I'll talk a little bit about that. So who is People for Bikes and why does it matter? We are the bicycle industry's trade and advocacy organization. We are the mouthpiece for the bike industry. We do that in a couple of different ways. We leverage our influence in infrastructure, so helping to build connected places to bike. We also are rooted in pro-bike policy or pro-bike business policy and participation. We want to welcome, similar to the outdoor industry, we want to welcome more people, introduce them to the joys of riding a bike. So we represent over 300 industry coalition partners. Those are brands, Trek, Specialized, Cervelo, Bosch, folks that you probably already know. And together, as I mentioned, we are the voice of the bicycling industry here in the US. Let's see, so this is a little bit of a, let's call it Al Gore, an inconvenient truth, but for us, this is really convenient. So what you're looking at here is industry analysts are projecting or forecasting that we are going to sell, or there will be roughly 12 million new e-bikes sold between now and 2030. So what does that mean for us? Well, it means that we actually, let's see here. Oh, here's our critter. More on him in a second. So massive increase in electric bicycle use for transportation, recreation, and this program is actually the first of its kind in transportation, meaning that we are in front of electric vehicles. We're also leading our counterparts in Europe in introducing a unified battery recycling program. So, okay, I forgot to introduce you to Watts. He's the critter up top there, and this is Ray. Together, they love the planet, and they are on a mission to recycle batteries. And Watts is our, he's got an insatiable appetite for batteries. So this is them on their journey to help save the planet. But before we start campaigning, let's talk about what we need. We need to find a partner who actually is experienced at recycling batteries. And what we've done, the industry has partnered with Call to Recycle. Their purpose is to safely transition communities to a battery-powered world through climate-responsible solutions. So we, the industry, came to Call to Recycle, and what we decided to do was leverage all of our stakeholders. So People for Bikes, Call to Recycle, there are 3 separate, this is probably pretty high level, but this is the 3 stakeholders that we need to really align. One is brands, suppliers, and retailers. So brands, like as I mentioned, Trek Specialized, and some of those other suppliers could be Bosch. And what we needed to do was really align those folks to join this program and be able to advocate for this program to get more brands involved as well. The retailers, they are the tip of the spear. So essentially what you have is a place or a destination for consumers to go and take their batteries. So as I mentioned, the retailers are super important to this program. They are trained. They safely inspect, intake packages, they ship lithium-ion batteries. They're trained, and what we have done as part of this, this partnership with retailers is provided them with a toolkit, which we'll get to also. Over 1,900 plus retailers across the US are now enrolled in this program. And as I mentioned, there's a toolkit that we also created for not just retailers, but also for brands and suppliers. And what we wanted to do is make this really easy for them. So we've aligned on things like postcards, posters, stickers, social assets, web banners, email templates. And then we also provided them with a full, what we call our Hungry for Batteries campaign branding guide. And this helps them really kind of understand not just the program, but what the campaign's trying to communicate, which is don't trash your batteries, recycle your batteries. That's it. So want to introduce you again to Watts and Ray. Look for them at your favorite retailer, and they're going to help you recycle your batteries. How's that?
All right. I'm going to probably walk around a little bit, so please excuse me. I'm Rachel Piacenza. I'm with a group called the Recreational Boating and Fishing Foundation. We are a nonprofit group out of Washington, D.C., and our mission is just to increase fishing and boating participation, really among newcomers, really among families. Groups that don't traditionally see themselves in the sport of fishing is what we kind of try to pride ourselves in. And if you haven't heard of RBFF, which is fine, we're very small, we're about 15 to 17 people, fully staffed. Hopefully you have heard of our consumer-facing campaign called Take Me Fishing. Again, aimed at awareness of getting people into the sports of fishing, very basic how-to videos, where-to videos, kind of top of the funnel. Let's get excited about fishing and boating. So I'm here to kind of talk to you about that today. Each year, as part of our Take Me Fishing campaign, our campaign typically each year is rooted in research. It's rooted in data. Which audience segments do we need to be going after? I think you heard, I think his name was Earl from Black Folks Camp 2 saying data research, it's hard to argue with that. So each year when we run our campaign, we're making sure we're going after the right audiences. So this year, we just launched a campaign focused on women. Right now, we're at 19.8 million women participating in the sport of fishing. This is up dramatically from 16 million just a few years ago. In comparison, nationally, all participants were at just shy of 55 million. So if you do the quick math, there's about 33, 34 million men participating in the sport. As you can see, there's a big gap, but we did a lot of research to get where we were right now, ready, comfortable, confident to launch this campaign. So you see a lot of women coming in, unfortunately, and I think there's a laser on here. Unfortunately, the top is new women coming into the sport of fishing. So we get about 4 or 5 million average each year, but on the bottom, they're falling out as quickly as they're coming in. So they're learning about the sport. Maybe they don't have someone to go with. Maybe they don't have the confidence and the knowledge to continue, but they're interested enough, but we have to retain them and keep them coming back. Unfortunately, only 19% of women actually see themselves represented in the sport of fishing. So, close your eyes and think about who you would typically see as an angler. Sadly, if you do just a Google search of fishing, these are some of the pictures that come up. So we as an organization and a nonprofit are really trying to kind of change that narrative and get that next generation of people coming in. So a couple years ago, just before the pandemic, we launched this program called Women Making Waves, and we're now kind of calling it our Wave Makers campaign because it really is open to everybody. And this caught on really quick a few years ago, and then we had the pandemic. So we're now kind of tiptoeing back into it because we have the research and the data to support this. Additionally, and some other breakouts mentioned this already, but the spending power that women have in general, and this is regardless, this is across all industries. And all of this is pulled from Pew Research and Ipsos. But over 50% of households say that mom is the one doing the planning, trying to find activities for the family. 70 to 80% of all consumer spending decisions driven by women. It makes sense to put women in the forefront. These two right here are, when brands put women front and center, 35% more likely to improve how consumers feel about the brand, 20 more likely to choose the brand. This is among all genders. We also wanted to make sure before we launched this campaign that we were making it make sense for the industry. So a lot of what I'm responsible for is our direct-to-consumer campaign. We also have a stakeholder engagement team, and we work with industry. We work with state stakeholders, so all the state DNRs that sell fishing licenses, register boats. And then we work with the federal government. So think like National Park Service, Forest Service, a lot of these places that have fishing and boating opportunities. So we wanted to make sense for both groups. So if we can just get women to increase their participation by 10%, it's a $1 billion additional revenue for the entire industry. So we wanted to make sure we were checking all these boxes before we went and hit that launch button. I will I'll preface this slide, because I know I only have a little bit of time here, but I'll preface this slide with, given the opportunity that we saw in those past few slides, we did some research last year with Ipsos on what really makes women tick when they go fishing. What's in their psyche? Do they have any sort of mental, emotional benefits when they're out on the water? And we have some really strong research findings that women are catching more than fish when they're out on the water. They're catching confidence, they're catching patience, they're catching resilience. And I think a lot of us who fish know this, but to be able to actually prove it in research and show that we have the numbers is pretty neat. And I'm really proud to be part of this. Here are some other facts in here. Active anglers, 24% more likely to say setbacks don't discourage them than non-anglers. 1 in 5 say fishing makes them feel they can do anything that they set their mind to. Active female anglers, 27% more likely to be satisfied with their lives. So net, take people fishing, take women fishing. We're seeing a lot of just really good life-changing attributes coming out of this. So how we kind of evolved into this campaign and launched, like I said, and I have some of these keys on slides just because these were really important for us to make sure before we hit this launch button. We did the research, we did a lot of strategy and planning, we threw around a few creative options, we produced it, we made it make sense for the industry, which I think is super important. And then, even though we spent all this money, invested all this money on research, we tested it again. We wanted to test the creative we were putting out in market to make sure it made sense. And so we put some more dollars behind this. We tested it among women. We also tested our creative among men. Then we launched. So this is May of this year. So you can see this has taken about a year to get to where we are. And now we're in the process now of measuring performance. And I have our 60-second ad that I'm going to try to see if this works. Let's see. Count the number of times you see fish in this ad.
She starts to breathe. A special flame has been lit within. The spark of something new begins. There is something in the water. On her own, she's in the zone. Determination can't be thrown. Pursuit is built in her bones. There's something in the water. With her gator on and her weight is on, she can tackle anything till dawn. There must be something in the water. On and on the boat she flies. The sky's the limit. She's soaring high. She's a force of nature on the rise. There's something in the water.
So if you would have told me that...
Like having a boring desk.
Oh, hang on. That's YouTube. Hang on. So if you would have told me that we would have an ad focused on fishing with maybe like a half a second of a fish in it, I would have probably told you were crazy. But I think that's the beauty of this. It's showing there's more to fishing, and I think we talked about it yesterday actually in this breakout room. There were some good discussions on that. There's more to fishing than just catching fish and showing it and holding it up for the camera. There's planning for the trip. There's getting ready with your friends. There's going shopping for the items that you're going to need. So this is just kind of our kind of campaign, kind of circle, I guess, if you will, on everything we're doing with this video. We have national TV, connected TV, PSA options with this video. So we're fortunate enough to have a strategic alliance with Walt Disney World. And so we have access to a lot of their media. We show this 60-second spot specifically on Disney Channel, Disney XD, Disney Junior. If you have kids, they most likely have probably seen it. You can actually fish down on Disney property as well. And so we have some branding down there to kind of seal the deal on that whole trip. We have some really cool print ads, which I'll show in a second. We also did some media partnerships this year with some really unexpected media. So we worked with Forbes, we worked with Vanity Fair, we worked with Hype Bay, really trying to be intentional on who we're working with and really get into unexpected areas where you wouldn't normally expect to see fishing. So we have social media. We had a creative extension called Fearless Fishing Line, where we showed some of the insights from the research on the back of the fishing line to kind of bring that all home and have something tangible to work with. We also work a lot with influencers. So just kind of the whole wheel here of everything we do with the campaign. So this is the last slide I have. Just wanted to leave this up here. This is one of my favorite slides. Hope you can join us in trying to find your best self on the water and with all these amazing attributes that you get when you're out there. And because at RBFF, we truly believe the water is open to everyone. So thank you. Oh, wait, I guess I have one more. I just kind of pulled everything together. I'd say the biggest, like I said, with investing and making sure you're taking the time for research, you're taking the time to promote, you're taking the time, you're just investing in all of this in terms of time, in terms of money, looking at what's already out there in terms of research. We took a lot of time just to look what else is out there before we set forth on this opportunity. And just don't push, and I think this probably goes without saying, but don't push stuff out just to push it out. Make sure you're being authentic. You're working with influencers that have that clout with their audience. You're allowing them to create on what will fit best with their audience. Don't just use the video and push it out, but make sure you're being authentic. And that's it.
I think I do, yeah. Is it on? Thanks, Rachel. Thanks, Jose. Data, authenticity. What I'm going to be talking about next is, I think, more heavily weighted to the authenticity part than the data part. And that's not by design, because what I'm going to be talking to you about is kind of the inception story of the organization I work for, Backcountry Hunters and Anglers. We have a saying at BHA, all good things start around a campfire. And the seeds of our story began at our first campfire back almost 20 years ago in 2004. It was a group of friends, of hunting buddies, who gathered around a campfire in Oregon after a day of field together. And they shared stories, they traded tales of past adventure. And as the night wore on, they started talking about the state of public lands and waters in North America. And these were individuals who cared deeply about those places, those lands and waters, and also what they represented as part of a shared heritage, the opportunities that they represent. They left that fire at the end of that night with resolve to create an organization that worked on behalf of public lands, public waters, on conservation, on public access and opportunity, working to make sure that now and in future generations, we all have the opportunity to experience places and have experiences like this one. One of the reasons that I was drawn, and I think a lot of us are drawn to Backcountry Hunters and Anglers, is the concept of public lands and waters. They're the great equal opportunity avenue to the outdoors. Public lands and waters, they don't care how much money you make. They don't care what your parents do for a living. They don't care where you live, whether you live in a high-rise in New York City or in a house in Missoula, Montana, right? Where we all hold equal title to this amazing heritage of lands and waters all over the country. This is a photo, it always makes me smile. This was from the first staff retreat I went on when I joined BHA back in 2015. So for the first 10 years of our existence, we were largely a grassroots-driven organization. When I came on board in 2015, we had less than 1,000 members. We had 4 or 5 full-time staff. I was the first full-time communications staffer that the organization ever hired. And when I look at this picture, this was on day 4 of a trip down the Smith River in Montana. We hiked up to the top of this cliff and we're exploring this cave with petroglyphs on the walls. And it embodies some aspect, I think, that is essential to BHA, and that is that we are a movement that is driven by great passion, great commitment to the idea of public lands and waters, to the equal opportunity that they represent. And it really embodies the organic nature of how our movement kind of came to be. This is a picture from one of our early gatherings. We still do them today. We just call them pint nights. And we go to a local microbrewery. Microbreweries are so often community gathering points in towns all over the country. And put out a call, invite hunters, anglers, people who are curious about getting into hunting and angling. Maybe they enjoy going to farmers markets, or they have a garden and they like the idea of sourcing their own sources of sustainably harvested protein. Maybe they like the idea of getting into fishing, but they don't know how to do it, or they're looking for a community to belong to. And that's what BHA first and foremost offered our members. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what our community and our membership looks like right now in 2023. We do annual surveys of our membership to get a sense of who our members are, what drives them, what their priorities are. So I'm going to give you just a quick snapshot. Our membership is young. 76% of our members are 54 and younger. 2/3 of our members are 45 and younger. That's important, particularly in the hunting and fishing space. It kind of is the opposite of what a lot of groups in the sportsman's community look like. And we're really privileged to have a younger demographic. I think it's a result of our kind of our grassroots outreach, our reliance on social media, and just the kind of the passion that underlies who we are as a membership. Our political affiliation is worth highlighting because we're very evenly split across the political spectrum. You'll see that 21% of our membership identifies as Republican, 19% identifies as Democrat, 5% Libertarian, and everyone else either identifies as politically independent or prefers not to state their affiliation. That is so important when it comes to the policy work that we do in DC, because when we can go to our elected officials and demonstrate that an issue that we're throwing our support behind is not the province of just one political party, that it's important to voters all across the spectrum, that gives us, and when I say us, I mean the entire conservation community, not just sportsmen, not just hunters and anglers, it gives us more resonance and impactfulness in DC than we would have otherwise. 23% of BHA members are either active duty military or military veterans. That's worth noting because that's about twice the national average. And I grew up in a military family. My dad was career Army, and I think that it's very common in military families and communities to have a very strong focus on public service, on the idea of committing oneself in service of a greater good to benefit the public at large. Our military affiliations at BHA reflect that. Our military program, our Armed Forces Initiative has been growing, doubling in size every year since we launched it in 2020. BHA members are unabashed fans of public lands and waters. 90% of BHA members spend most of our time afield on public lands and public waters. BHA members are willing to be outspoken when it comes to policy issues in which we strongly believe. So this is a snapshot. We did poll our members this year on several key policy issues that we felt were important to us as hunters and anglers and us as conservationists. 78% of our members think that it's important that hunters and anglers are part of the conversation surrounding climate change. Climate change has traditionally been an issue that has been tricky for the hunting and angling community to engage in. So I love this statistic because it shows how our community has been willing to kind of take a leading role in stepping out and being outspoken on issues that are obviously very important to all of us. I'm not going to read all, these are some comments that people submitted with their membership survey this year, and I'm not going to read them out loud, but instead I'm going to tell you just a quick story about a moment at BHA where we had confirmation that we were having an impact on the dialogue and the action surrounding public policy on public lands and waters in the United States. This is back in 2017. There was a member of the House of Representatives at that time, Representative Jason Chaffetz. He was a member of Congress from the state of Utah. He introduced a bill, House Bill 621, that would have mandated the sale of relatively small amount of public lands all over the West, about 3 million acres. Small in the grand scheme of things. At that time, there was much more of a dialogue happening about what should we do with these public lands? Maybe we should transfer them, their ownership, out of the public sphere. Maybe we should sell them. Maybe we should privatize them. So Representative Chaffetz was kind of continuing that line of dialogue, and he introduced a bill that ordinarily might not have attracted a lot of notice, and in all honesty, probably would not have advanced very far in Congress. But my organization, BHA, got wind of the introduction of this bill, and we decided to use it as a way to activate our community and our following to be outspoken in our support of public lands and waters. So we shared it on social media. We emailed our members about it. We had our CEO talk on Facebook Live about it. And a movement started to grow. Other voices within our community joined the chorus of pushback against this bill. Well-known members of the outdoors community and beyond. Randy Newberg, Stephen Ranella, Joe Rogan spoke up and mobilized their followers to speak out against this bill. And what resulted only days after Representative Chaffetz introduced it was he withdrew it, which is a fairly unusual step for a member of Congress to take after introducing a bill. And he announced his decision to do so on Instagram, and that's the congressman there. You can see he's dressed up in his camouflage clothes to show that he too is a hunter. He's holding his dog, who doesn't really look very happy about being in the picture, and it announces his decision to withdraw House Bill 621. And then he ends with the tagline that BHA uses all the time, which is "Keep it public." So that helped us realize that we could be even more of an impactful force in public lands policy. This was a billboard we put up also in Utah. And part of our effort to hold our elected officials accountable when it comes to decisions they make, thanking them for decisions that are beneficial to our public lands and waters, and spanking them when they go the wrong way. Some of you might have seen one of our t-shirts that we've sold. Oh man, I don't even know how many of them we sold. The message on the shirt resonates with people. A lot of folks who wear them are not BHA members, and they don't really even know very much about our organization. They might not even think of themselves as hunters and anglers, but there is an impactfulness and a resonance with the message of being a public landowner, participating in something that is part of the shared experience of being an American citizen. So since then, We've continued our engagement in policy issues that are important to outdoor recreation, to public lands and waters. We, along with our partners, played critical roles in the passage of 2 pieces of legislation, the Dingell Act in 2019 and the Great American Outdoors Act in 2020, that were responsible for billions of dollars in funding for public lands and waters management. Also, we're responsible for permanently reauthorizing and ensuring full permanent funding for a program called the Land and Water Conservation Fund, which is a federal program that takes a fraction of revenues paid by oil companies drilling on the outer continental shelf and puts them into conservation and public access programs. 98% of American counties have benefited from LWCF funds. We've worked together to focus attention and to conserve important landscapes like the Boundary Waters in Minnesota, Bristol Bay in Alaska. We've also really increased our work in recent years on public access, making sure that people are able to access great places to hunt, to fish, to climb, to hike, to birdwatch, to get a field. We've notched major wins for public stream access for anglers and boaters in Utah and New Mexico in recent years. We're currently engaged in a legal battle in the state of Wyoming surrounding corner crossing, which, if some of y'all are familiar, is looking at whether it is legal for us to step from the corner of one piece of public land across 2 squares of private lands onto another piece of public land. And our community has grown quite a bit since I came on board in 2015 when we had hundreds of members. We now have a community of over 500,000, and that's paid members, life members. It is corporate allies, companies who want to participate in our work to offer that great equal opportunity access to America's public lands and waters. We have a staff of close to 40 people, and we have chapters in 48 states, 2 Canadian provinces, 1 territory, and Washington, D.C. So it has been my privilege to be part of this growing movement. Again, not driven, well, I think we're relying more on data these days than we were back in the days of that first campfire, but a movement that grew untraditionally, very organically, and moved by the passion that so many of us feel for our shared outdoor spaces. Thank you so much for giving me the chance to talk to you all today. I think we're opening this up to questions now. Yes, sir.
So when you're launching a national campaign, you build that foundation with partnerships, making sure the infrastructure and everything, conditions are aligned. And when you do roll out, what is usually the first, is it simultaneously like TV spots with social media, print ads?
So we've been around for about 20, 25 years. I will say, to answer your question, it's kind of a combination of, for something that's worked for us is TV, social, paid search, kind of launching everything at one time and during the peak months. So we heavy up a lot of our media buy from April through September, just because that's peak fishing and boating season. We have items like paid search, paid social running the full year, but we'll heavy up on a lot of the other tactics throughout those like 4 or 5 months.
Any advice if you're on a shoestring budget? If you had to pick one to start out with, what would it be?
I would probably start looking at social media first and finding, some good influencers to get your content out there. And from there kind of grow.
That's a really good question. What we've done at People for Bikes is develop what we call a run of show to support the campaign. And essentially what you want to identify are the channels that you want to communicate your message. For us, it's I showed you some of the stakeholders, but we are speaking to the industry. In this case, we needed to develop a run of show to begin to speak to the industry about the recycling program, not necessarily the campaign. Once we aligned on our messaging for the program, for the industry, we got a bunch of feedback. We created a feedback loop. And that's really what helped us inform what we would call the run of show. How do we address our channels, whether it be our email, social, PR? Email is probably one of our strongest channels, and the reason it is because we've developed what we call our army, people who are engaged on our behalf, and the other it would be like industry advocates, policymakers. So we kind of lump them into what we call our industry. So we're communicating with those folks as well. So we develop depending on how long you want to go for throughout the year, you develop a little bit of a run of show to address a couple pieces of messaging, and that's what we've done, and it's proven to be effective. You have anything to add on that?
Build an army. I'll echo what you said.
Yeah, build an army.
You can't add anything else to that.
Any other questions? Building a national campaign. Who's go ahead.
How are you measuring if your campaigns are in other ways? How are you measuring it?
Yeah, and actually, I think I just sent a couple days ago some slides that had results on it, so I was a little caught off guard. They weren't in there, but we typically measure. We're starting right now to just look at, like, we built a landing page for the campaign. We're looking at stuff like landing page views and stuff like that. But we should get probably most of our results here, I'd say, in the next month or so. But we're having a really good lift on, like, social media. There's more conversations happening on social media with, specifically among women, and fishing. Our ads are just going to be out of the market, so I don't have all those results. But we had in print alone, we had over 7 million impressions on print, which is pretty crazy. In addition to just print, we worked with Forbes and Vanity Fair to do some custom content as well. So they'll be measuring some of that stuff for us, and that we'll be able to get as a result of that. So I don't know if that fully answered your question, but I'm sorry.
And if you're going to have to repeat all your research.
No, but what we're trying to do, I think this is year one. What we're going to do moving into year two, so probably next spring, is we want to activate more on, like, the regional, local level, because we have all these people interested now in this sport. How do we make sure that they stay connected and stay out on the water? Because, like you saw, everyone's dropping out, and we think that that's one of the main reasons is they're not seeing themselves, but we have to do some additional retention research around that specifically if there's anything additional as to why they're not staying in the sports. So yes, always research. There's always stuff to learn.
Maybe I can answer. Three unique organizations for sure. One of the things, so measure for success of a campaign, for us on the battery recycling, there's a couple of ways that we measure that. One is, are we growing our coalition, meaning the people that have signed on to the program? So once we've launched it, how are we fueling that financial the financial matrix to ensure that this thing is scalable over time? The other piece of that is that we look at how many batteries have been recycled. So to date, I think it's been now 6-7 months. We can celebrate we've recycled over 43,000 pounds of batteries to date. So in addition to looking at the regular stuff is like, clicks, how much reach, all of these things that you've deployed. You're also looking for how do we make sure that this program or campaign goes on for years to come. So building that foundation is super critical for us. Do you want to add anything to that?
As usual, you guys have covered most of what I would say. In addition to, all the typical measures, social media reach, membership numbers, likes, follows, we look at pieces of legislation passed or not passed, number of dollars invested in conservation funding and public lands management. In the 3 months leading up to passage of the Great American Outdoors Act, members of the BHA community made 6,000 phone calls to elected officials. And phone calls are, it's easy to send an email and to click a form letter. As we all know, it takes a little bit more time and boldness to pick up the phone and make that phone call. So we look for measures like that as well. Probably have time. Oh, what's that?
I was just reading the sign.
I was going to say, do we have time for one more question? No, we don't.
I don't think so. One more question.
Or we can wrap it up now.
We've got one.
Oh, right on.
Maybe you and I should just check. 'Cause I'm just curious about the decision to. So Watts, very cute.
Yep.
And I'm wondering, what made you choose that particular route for this? Is it the demographics and age of e-bike users, or thinking about like parents and eco-friendly stuff? So like, I'm just curious where you landed with that mascot.
What a great question. Wow. There's a couple things in there that I could certainly unpack. One is the idea of a playfully serious campaign. And what that means is obviously sustainability, recycling, it's not pretty. It's really gross, and the fact that we get this question often, are these batteries actually being recycled? And the answer is yes. But to your question, we wanted to make this playfully serious. It's a serious topic. We needed to have fun with it. We wanted two characters that basically represented who we are. Watts, his insane, this appetite for eating batteries, and he's got, I gave him a gender, imagine that, weird. But Watts has a friend, Ray, and together they're here to save the world. And they represent really the industry and people. So Watts would represent the industry, and Ray really represents the average rider. They're young, they're motivated, and sort of represents where we see our audience is going. So while e-bikes are incredible at introducing folks to the joy of riding, we also know that it has helped older adults, folks with disabilities. We wanted to really have a little bit of balance. And if you put together a run of show, obviously there's different phases to your campaign. And right now we're sort of in that awareness phase. And so we get to these, like for example, the next phase of the campaign is going to be called Collecting for a Cause. And everything is going to be around how Ray and Watts are doing that on behalf of the industry. Does that help?
Yeah, definitely.
Cool.
Thanks so much, you
Great
guys.
questions. Thank you.
Yeah.